Everybody knows about the awful situation that Ubisoft is in right now, but if you don't know or you just want some more context, let's give a bit of backstory before we get started. So basically, Ubisoft stock is on a massive plunge right now. Like, it's about as bad as it gets in terms of stock decay for a company of their size. And there's a lot of factors contributing to this, like, poor quality of video games in the past couple of years, internal workplace issues, loss of consumer trust, which would be like me and you as consumers. And then that leads to a loss of investor trust, in turn leading to the company being where it is right now. So there are some serious talks going on behind the scenes about the Guillemot family selling Ubisoft to Tencent, which would in turn make Ubisoft a private company. And then there's rumors about if Tencent would kill off Ubisoft entirely or continue trying to revive their AAA gaming company. But I mean, either way, the company is coming to a breaking point and some kind of changes will have to be made. And disclaimer, I may be a business major, but I recognize that I could not run a multi-billion-dollar company any better than professionals, so take this video with a grain of salt and try not to look at it too seriously. So anyways, in this video, I'm going to be introducing a hypothetical where I am Ubisoft's CEO and I need to turn this company around. So let's get started. As the new CEO, this would be inferring that the old CEO got fired, which I think is actually a great first step in the right direction. Would this ever happen though? Probably not, considering the CEO is actually one of the co-founders of Ubisoft from like the 80s, so they'd probably let the company dive bomb all the way into the ground and go up in flames before actually firing him. But all logistics aside, the leadership within the organization simply does not have the vision to pull itself from the jaws of defeat or, succeed in any possible way. Now, my argument is not rooted in most people's contempt for the current CEO. I'm not trying to say that he's pushing an agenda in his organization or anything like that. You guys can argue that amongst yourselves in the comments. I'm just simply stating that the top executives don't have the business or leadership skills, for the lack of a better word, to continue on in this current state. But as my first move, I would come out and publicly state that we, as a company, are going to implement a comprehensive turnaround strategy to restore profitability and address root causes of distress within the entire organization in hopes of eliminating these stressors for long-term, sustained success. Ensuring this confidence in investors and consumers will be absolutely vital, and this would allow for people to be open to the idea of a turnaround rather than the overwhelmingly preconceived notion that the company is going to be sold in the near future. Now, for my next move, I would restore and revitalize the core franchises that are key to Ubisoft's identity. And in terms of core franchises, I would consider the following to fall under that category. So we have Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege, Assassin's Creed, and Far Cry. So I would stray away from any outliers for now to ensure the most optimal allocation of resources. And granted, it is too late now since these games have already been released, but I would put a hold on developing games like Star Wars Outlaws or X-Defiant, since they're new entrants into the gaming field and they require more resources to actually get jump started to get going. So just focus on those three main franchises for right now until you're back on your feet, because those three franchises alone contribute to over half of Ubisoft's total revenues, and that's all other variables held constant, of course. But getting back to my main point, a major test for the company will be Assassin's Creed Shadows coming in Q1 of 2025. The company received a lot of backlash for pushing back the release, but if this means they are realizing they need to put more polishing time into the releases, then I think that it's a great step in the right direction. This Assassin's Creed game could be their last shot at revitalizing the franchise with a really quality release. And in terms of Far Cry 6 didn't totally flop, but it also was considered a bit of a disappointment by avid fans of the franchise. Now, I didn't physically get my hands on Far Cry 6, which is one of the only Far Cries that I haven't played, mostly because a lot of unimpressive reviews. So personal experience aside, mostly looking at what people say online, it seems that the game pulled a classic Ubisoft and lost its identity and changed the winning formula of the franchise, which just left players disappointed. And then you have Rainbow Six Siege, probably the most relevant franchise of Ubisoft's right now. If you're watching this video, you probably have some kind of connection to Rainbow Six Siege. Most of my channel is Siege. So I could probably go on and talk for the whole video about how Ubisoft could fix Siege, but that's what I have a million other videos for, so if you want to listen to more in-depth ideas, go check those out. But in terms of, a simple breakdown, I think it all comes down to the game's formula. And to put it simply, Ubisoft has lost that formula. They've nearly entirely lost Siege's identity. The creativity, innovation, and passion just really aren't there anymore, which sucks because I think there's a lot of really creative people and developers in this branch of Ubisoft, and they're just simply being held back. So while I do respect Ubisoft's attempts at quality over quantity in Rainbow Six Siege, with only releasing 2 new operators in year 9 in hopes of slowing down and focusing on making the game more polished, they just aren't really executing it very well. Quality over quantity only works when you put the time in to make something quality, not just reducing quantity and calling it a day. The lack of content in the game has stifled their active player base, and their most loyal players are dropping like flies. So there needs to be more engaging, worthwhile, and identity-aligned content in Rainbow Six Siege for them to get their spark back. So basically, overall, the goal here is just to cut back from redundant costs and solely focus on high profit margin and high potential projects like these main franchises of Siege, Assassin's Creed, and Far Cry. The next step is to rebuild trust from developers, investors, consumers, etc. And there's plenty of examples of this with other big companies that rebuilt themselves after a bad stretch. You have Brian Chesky with Airbnb, Howard Schultz with Starbucks, 2 of the bigger examples I could think of, probably countless more that I'm just forgetting off the top of my head. But the point is that repairing relationships with stakeholders and being transparent is absolutely key. And part of this does come from proving their worth with the quality of their games, so they cannot just talk the talk, they have to walk the walk. And that right there is a slippery slope, because if they only talk the talk without making the actual changes, it will make the company look astronomically worse. Stakeholders are increasingly aware of performative gestures and are quick to call out inconsistencies, so an approach that combines transparency, accountability, and genuine action will be essential in restoring trust and securing a loyal customer base moving forward. Another thing that falls in line with increasing stakeholder trust is addressing issues within the company's environment. Ubisoft has been criticized for workplace issues such as crunch culture and even sexual misconduct, so I think an internal audit to address treatment and potential harassment of employees by some outsourced company following by clear accountability measures will actually probably be one of the very first things I would do as CEO, so a bit out of order here, but the message remains the same. A company physically cannot operate with these misconducts hanging over their head, and especially not a company that is expected to encourage such creativity to succeed and accomplish goals. Hopefully this audit would boost employee morale and find root causes of these unfair treatments, and like I said, those root causes would be held accountable in whatever ways seem necessary. Now, something that Ubisoft is actually doing horribly wrong that I would put a stop to immediately is their newly adopted idea of subscription models. Exhibit A being the Rainbow Six Siege membership. Now let me make it clear, diversifying your revenue streams like making subscription services are 1000% necessary for long-term success. And I mean, that's like 70% of the reason that a company like Apple has such sustained success, because they don't just sell hardware, they don't just sell iPhones, they sell services as well. But Ubisoft is going about it so unbelievably wrong. This is something they need to reintroduce in a few years' time when consumers' trust has been restored. What they did was shove expensive memberships down our throats in a time of incredibly low-quality games from Ubisoft, which is effectively the same as eating a cheeseburger that wasn't even good and then still getting food poisoning from it. I don't know why that was the first example that came to mind, but you get the point. Like, the absolute insult to injury is just ridiculous, and I fully support anyone who rips Ubisoft for these decisions. So it's definitely not time to introduce these diverse revenue sources. They need to remove them immediately and allow any current members to finish out their current periods. And then in a couple of years' time, like I said, they can roll it back out in a different way. But we're really only looking at the short to medium term right now in this video rather than the long term. So we don't really need to look at any reintroduction of membership services. The main idea is we just need to get them gone for right now. Customer service is another key thing that I would attempt to turn around as a part of my plan. If you've ever had a problem in a Ubisoft game and attempted to contact customer support, you probably never heard back, and if you did, consider yourself lucky. Their customer support is genuinely one of the worst I've ever seen in any company ever. You have companies like Zappos and Amazon that pride themselves on customer-centric approaches to their customer support, and although only a fraction of gamers actually have a problem they report to the support team, it goes a long way in improving that trust with consumers that we talked about a lot in this video. So going off of this, leading to my last change as CEO of Ubisoft, as much as it may seem lame and unnecessary, it is really important for Ubisoft to implement some corporate social responsibility as one of the biggest companies in their respective industry. As consumers, it may seem like, they shouldn't be wasting their time on this, they should focus on the quality of their games, but it's really important in terms of actual business, conducting a successful business, to take on corporate social responsibility, such as focusing on sustainability measures in their gaming development, supporting local communities, raising money for lesser fortunate communities to play video games, in order to rebuild their image. And in turn, this rebuilds their trust and creates a positive connotation around their brand, which right now is very far from positive. And like I said, disclaimer, of course, I am no expert by any means, and nor do I think I can run a multi-billion-dollar company any better than professionals, but I think a lot of these ideas in this video from a business standpoint would put Ubisoft in a much better place than they are right now, considering it really couldn't get much worse. I also know there's a lot more that goes on behind the scenes that may inhibit Ubisoft from making some of these changes, and I also am not trying to insult or stain the company's image in any way throughout this video. But what did I miss, or what do you guys disagree with? Let me know down in the comments, and I'll try my best to reply to as many comments as I possibly can. And as always, thanks so much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.